Hello and good afternoon. My name is Danielle, your host for today. Welcome to today's presentation, 5-Star State of Mind, brought to you by Leap and Yelp. On the poll you see in front of you, go ahead and give us an idea if you currently monitor your reviews, if you use reviews in your marketing, or if you want to learn more about reviews. I'm going to launch that right now for you. This will help us get an idea of today's audience and help us steer the conversation. Wonderful, we got a good mix here. It looks like we have a good variety of companies that are joining us today. 75% of you monitor reviews already and respond to them. 29% of you use them for marketing purposes. And 11% of you are excited to learn more. So awesome. Thank you so much for participating in that. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. Her name is Emily Washcovick. I hope I said that right. As Yelp's small business expert, Emily is responsible for building a thriving network for local businesses, business owners, operators, marketers through education and networking events, now exclusively virtual. She hosts events and webinars to provide business owners and resources that help them succeed and grow in the world of online reviews. Emily's expertise lies in customer engagement, reputation management, and all things digital marketing. Her knowledge encompasses countless industries, and through thought leadership and speaking engagements, she's able to share insights that business owners of all kinds can leverage for the future of their business. She is also the host of a new podcast from Yelp and Entrepreneur Media called Behind the Review. Each episode features conversations with business owners and a reviewer about the story and lessons behind their interactions. Emily, if you'd like to turn on your screen and say hello, that'd be great.
Hi, Danielle. Thanks so much for having me. And for all of you on the line, I just want to give you guys a huge pat on the back for making time for yourself today. I know it's really hard to hop on Zooms in the middle of a busy day, but hopefully we can jam pack these next 40 to 45 minutes with some great insights for you all about reviews. And then we'll have time at the end for Q&A as well. Danielle, anything else before I dive in that you'd like to cover? Nope. Okay, we'll get started then. So this presentation, 5-Star State of Mind, has a couple of key components to it. The first is just understanding the importance and value of engaging digitally with your brand and what people are saying about you online. And then the other is very tactical. So I want you to walk away today feeling confident and like you have a plan for how to engage with your online reputation. And whether that's ultimately you doing that work or someone else at your company, we can also kind of help determine that during today's call. My name is Emily. I have been with Yelp since 2014, and I've been presenting on the behalf of the company since 2016. I give my email out in all of those presentations, so you will not be a stranger in my inbox. If you have a question later today that you don't want to ask in front of the audience, if you have a question a week from now, a month from now, feel free to shoot me a note. Or if someone in your network wants to know something about Yelp or they haven't been able to get a question answered, you can always direct them my way. I'm more than happy to help. I'm also more than happy to connect them with someone else at the company if I am not the right person. So please jot that down. And I know the Leap team is going to share all of these slides with you after the fact. So don't feel like you need to ferociously scribble everything down. You will have access to these slides. And really what we want to do today is talk all about reviews. And reviews can play a lot of roles in your business, but one big element can be frustration. And with that in mind, and with the years I've been traveling around the country on behalf of Yelp, meeting business owners in all industries, I found out that business owners have a wide array of experiences with reviews, and they also want to hear from other business owners about how they handle situations. It's so much easier to learn from others who are going through the same challenges as you. So if you are looking to hear more firsthand advice from business owners, I highly recommend checking out that podcast, Behind the Review. Every episode is about 15 to 20 minutes, and it features the very best elements of how a reviewer and business owner connected and the experience was created in order to translate to an online review. So definitely check that out, and know that today a lot of the advice and examples that I'm going to give you are based on those guests that I've met and featured, not only on the show, but in the past 7 years that I've worked for the company. And if you're not an audio person and reading is more your style, we have an article every week with advice about how to manage online reviews and how to incorporate what you're doing with your employees, for example, to the consumer experience. So definitely check those things out if you'd like more firsthand examples, and know that today that's where I drive a lot of my examples from. I also can never do a Yelp presentation about reviews without talking about Yelp's trust and safety site. Yelp in particular has a review recommendation software, and it runs constantly and evaluates all of the content that's submitted to Yelp to determine which reviews are reliable and trustworthy or not. And we have an entire site dedicated to explaining why we have this algorithm and also the types of things it's looking for. But to give you a high-level explanation, the algorithm is looking for things we know about the reviewer, how active they've been on the site, have they written other reviews before? And also, Yelp is not what we call a drive-by site. So you can't just give a star rating, for example, like you can on Google. You have to actually have some content to your review. So if there's a review that says 5 stars, this place rocks, that might not be a recommended review, for example, because it doesn't have a lot of context. So if you have more questions about that, I will be sure to answer them or take them live at the end of the presentation. But you can also always check out this trust site, which I'll provide to the team to send in your follow-up email as well, if you have questions about why Yelp moderates content or what it looks for. All right, let's dive right into what we're all here for today, which is achieving that great online reputation. And what I have to stress more than anything is getting to this point is going to take the right mentality. We have to acknowledge that when we're engaging with our online reputation, it might not all be positive, but we can always make it positive. And that happens by choosing to engage and having a strategy in place to help represent who you are as a business as part of the conversation. So let's talk real quick about the way you get word out about your business, right? Long before review sites, you were having the word spread out and about. What were some traditional ways? Maybe you were in the yellow pages, right? Maybe you had TV ads, radio ads, but ultimately word of mouth is the way that people hear about your business probably most frequently. And it's essentially what Yelp and every other online review platform is. It's a word of mouth amplified, right? And so much of what I'll cover today will apply to Yelp, but also these other sites where you have a presence and people are talking about you. And in the home services, those sites span far and wide. And so we'll also talk about how you can get a grasp on that and figure out where you need to pay attention. But let's set the stage. Yelp or other sites, just think about the last time you referenced reviews to make a buying decision. And we know consumers are turning to reviews for a number of things. I always joke that a couple of years ago, I ran the Chicago Marathon and I lost about a year of my life reading online reviews for long distance running socks. And really, I already knew what brand I wanted to go with, but it felt like an important decision. And it felt like if other people had experience, I should reference that. And so I think we need to all just acknowledge and identify that the way consumers think about reviews has evolved over the years as they've become more accessible. 97% of consumers say that they read online reviews for businesses. That's insane compared to even 5 or 10 years ago. But that is why it's important to have a presence in those places that people are looking, and then to also leverage that presence to your benefit. These next few slides, I always kind of throw out there just to remind everyone that while the critical is something that we worry about and we want to have a plan for, right? And you're going to leave today with a plan for if you get a critical review. There's also a lot of positive benefit here. We know that even though transactions are still happening in stores and with customers face to face, the internet is still a place where searches are happening to figure out who to select. And in the home service industries, we want to remember that, especially if people get a referral or recommendation from family or friends, they're still going to look you up online. And whether they do a Google search and then see Yelp as an option, they find your website, whatever the case may be, they are looking for a digital representation. And when they're searching, especially on Yelp, their intent to purchase is already so far down the funnel. They've already made a decision of what they need. They just don't know who's going to provide it for them. And we want to always remember that everything that customers are saying about you, whether it's to a family member or a colleague or in an online review, can be used and amplified by you as a business to spread the word. And I know many of you are already doing this. You're incorporating reviews on your website, for example. And now we want to talk about harnessing all of those online comments that are being said, as well as the in-person, to garner that great reputation. Now, on Yelp and on all these other online platforms that are available, you have the ability to claim your free profile. I always tell people about 80 to 85% of the stuff you can do on Yelp is free. And it all starts by going to business.yelp.com. And I need to give just a few quick tips for profile completeness, and these apply to other sites as well, because when we talk about online reputation, we need to understand it's not just the reviews. The reviews are an important element of it, but it's having the correct business information. It's accurately displaying and explaining what you provide so that you don't need to handle calls and inquiries for things that you don't offer. And so whether it's Yelp or another online listing, you want to claim that page, and you want to make sure the very basic business information is accurate and that you've taken a little bit of time to fill it out. So on Yelp, for example, it'll prompt you to fill out each of these segments, but categories, for example, is something you really want to drill down on. Let's say, for example, that you do a lot of kitchen and bath, but you're not doing repair stuff. You're just doing full remodels. That's going to be something you can indicate once you select your category for bathroom and kitchen. You'll get a full set of services under that category, and you'll want to just check the ones that you actually provide. Now, filling this information out, it's going to take, 15 to 30 minutes probably for your Yelp page. And then you have to move on, right? You have to do your Google if you have all your other online presence, but it has to be correct and accurate, because that is what's helping determine if you're being found and being found for the right things. There's nothing more frustrating than people calling you for services you don't provide. So take those few minutes or assign it to someone on your team. If you have a receptionist, maybe there's someone who does, some social work for you. They can spend some time filling this out, making sure it's accurate. And by filling these things out, let's use ours as an example. Certain searches are going to be looking for open at certain times or certain appointments available. Even if you are a by appointment business, you want to have these hours filled out for the typical times you would meet a client, because whether it's Yelp, Google, Home Advisor, these people could be indicating specifics. And if you don't have your hours filled out at all, you just will not show up or appear in those results. So remember the importance of completing this. All right, the last profile completeness I want to talk about before we get into the nitty-gritty of reviews is the further info section. So on Yelp, it's specialties, history, and meet the owner or manager. But on your website, right, you probably already spent some time writing an about section, thinking critically about who you are and what you offer, and what keywords or phrases you want to include to make sure that you're found for what you do. So fill that out on Yelp. It's going to help set a baseline of understanding when customers come across your page. And we need to remember that consumers aren't only looking at reviews, they're looking at the whole picture. They're determining if you're the right fit for them And so having this information filled out is just a one and done. You don't have to keep updating it. It's not like social media where you have to post every week, but you want to fill it out once and you want to return to it or update it if things change in your business. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now, once your profile is complete on Yelp and on all your other online platforms, there's probably 3 to 5 that you're focusing on, depending on exactly what your business is. Now we're ready to engage with reputation. Now we're ready to respond to reviews because we have a profile. People know who we are because people want to hear from people, right? So having those complete profiles, it's going to take you a little time, 15 to 30 minutes to set it up, but now you're prepared to engage. And so let's make sure we get over the emotional hump that a lot of business owners run up against, which is essentially the fear of critical, right? And so I want you to ask yourself, do you embrace customer feedback? What would you do if someone asked to speak to a manager or to talk to you in person when you were on the job? You'd hear them out, right? You'd want to make the situation right. And I know that that's what business owners want to do whenever their consumers are upset, but it can be really frustrating when the consumer doesn't come directly to you, when they go online. But rather than get wrapped up in frustration, we want to use this to our advantage, okay? So we want to pretend that we're in person. I always joke when I throw this image up, pretend another customer is within earshot, listening in as you reply to this consumer concern, even if it's an online review, okay? And if it helps, because what so many business owners tell me is, Emily, everyone just complains online. They hide behind their keyboard, they make an account, they write fake things. Online reviews are just negatives, just criticals, just people telling us what we did wrong. It's just not true, you guys. Nearly 80% of the reviews on Yelp are positive, and there's more 5-star reviews than 1, 2, and 3-star reviews combined. So most people are turning to Yelp and turning to online review sites to share places they love, to share businesses who have provided them with incredible experiences and wonderful customer service. But what happens? When we get a critical, it hurts, right? It feels very personal. My partner owns his own business. My dad owns his own business. We talk a lot about online reviews. And I've had my fair share of dinners ruined over critical online reviews as well. So I understand the emotional investment. But what you need to do is shift that mindset. We can't get bogged in the critical and let it overwhelm us to the point where we're not capitalizing on the positive. And we need to remember that critical reviews are an opportunity to reflect who you are and to reflect your customer service practices. For any of my readers out there, I highly recommend this book by Jay Baer. It's called Hug Your Haters. And it's all about the fact that the worst thing you can do is not engage. The worst thing you can do is not be present. Let that critical review sit out there without any input from you, the business, or the brand, okay? I was in hotels before Yelp. I was actually a front office manager for Marriott for a few years. So I would deal with online reviews and in-person customer reviews every day. And it's really hard and frustrating. But when you take this approach of answering every complaint in every channel every time, not only do you have more of the positives to show you that distribution and really show you what you're doing well, so you start to value online reviews, but you can hone in and fix problems with critical reviews that have repetition so much faster if you have more data. And that's what I want you to think about. Is this online reputation, whether it's the collection of all reviews, just the great ones, or a few of the criticals, is free marketing. And even the criticals are free marketing. You might be surprised to know that there have been tons of studies done that show 3.5, 4, 4.5-star pages perform better than 5-star pages because it builds consumer trust. And oftentimes, Consumers aren't necessarily reading the critical reviews to decide that they don't want to work with a business. They're reading them to see if it applies to them or not. And more importantly, if the business owner responded. So think of every review positive, free marketing, free billboards on the web of what you do well, and critical as a chance for you to show who you are and put into question maybe that consumer experience or make it right. Now, I have to always talk about the positive because, again, this is more of what you'll deal with. But if your approach is to only engage with the negative, then you're never going to get the positive benefit of all the positive. So we can't just let the positive pass us by. We want to reply to those, create a connection with consumers who have appreciated and enjoyed our business. And then we also want to amplify that positivity. Share reviews. I know tons of businesses that share review of the week, review of the month, whether that's internally to celebrate wins with your team or externally in a place that naturally encourages your other customers to share their experience as well. And let's pause here and think about that. When you share a review onto social, what do? Your social media accounts are people who already know you, right? Whether they've done work with you or they admire your work or they're in your network or your community, they're already engaged with your brand, right? And if you take a review and share it, that is a great subtle way to let your entire community and network know you pay attention to online reviews. And then that calls them to share their experience without you asking, which on Yelp is extremely critical. We'll talk about that in a second. But let's get back here to this concept by Jay Baer. First, we're listening, right? We're actively looking out for what people are saying about us. With the plan to join the conversation, we're going to reply. And again, it might not be you. Maybe this is something you delegate to a team member. But joining the conversation is important. And we're doing that to gain consumer trust. So, 5 years ago, if you were replying to your online reviews, you were a little bit of a unicorn. It's become more common. People are doing it more frequently, but it is still a way to stand out. And I think many of you care about your customer service, right? You care about the reputation you have for customer excellence and the experiences that you and your staff create. So ultimately, you are already doing the legwork to get those positive online reviews. But if that doesn't sound like you, think about that for a second. Are there ways you can implement a little bit more customer service or customer care between your team and your clients that makes them say, I have to tell others about this experience? That's how it starts when it comes to getting those reviews written. And then remember how I said you need to know all the places people are talking about you? So it's not just Yelp, right? And I will never be the one to pretend we were in a Yelp bubble. You all should have websites. You probably have Google business pages. And then you also have other presences depending on your industry. You don't know what might pop up in the next couple of months or years. So how can you stay ahead of that? Well, you can do things like turn on Google alerts for your business name, and you can get notifications anytime your business is mentioned on the web. I have those turned on for my own name. I have them turned on for a couple of other keywords and phrases I pay attention to as well. It's free to do. Set it up to a random email that you have, and you'll see when people are mentioning your business digitally. Now, trends are the other element to understanding review content as a benefit instead of just having a strategy for critical. Okay, now all these potential themes might not apply to you based on your industry, but think about what you can glean from online reviews. And online reviews are normally going to reinforce the things you're trying to do well, or maybe even illuminate things you didn't know were your special talent. And I think there's a lot of great examples of that when you are paying attention to reviews, and I'll get into some of those. For example, this first one here. I know a restaurant group in Chicago, and they opened a new concept pre-pandemic, this was, and they thought so much about the decor, the style, the design, the furniture, everything. And I'm sure you've done the same with your business, your logo, your staff's uniforms, all sorts of things that you've thought of and proactively considered. But some things you just can't plan for. And in this case, within the first 2 weeks or so of them being opened, multiple reviews mentioned a noise issue. And it was the chairs rubbing on the tile floor. Beautiful tile, incredible chairs. They needed those little sticky things, you know? So this owner, he could have been so upset that these people are writing down star grading reviews because of the noise. He could have gotten all up in arms, but instead he just went to Home Depot, bought a bunch of those things, stuck them on the bottom, replied to these reviews, and moved on, and never saw reviews like this again. So I want to circle back to this concept of looking at reviews as something that can provide insights, be your eyes and ears for things that you might not be able to see or think of. And while it's frustrating to get a critical review, and it can be hard not to become obsessed with star rating and overall reviews, you want to really look at these as opportunity instead of roadblocks. My biggest belief is that if you have a plan before the crisis comes, it's far easier to navigate the crisis. And I also want to remind everyone, a 1-star review is normally not a crisis, but it feels that way, right? So if we have a plan of attack, we can do it better. And the plan of attack needs to start with positive because that's what we deal with more. And we cannot get sucked into this trap of only engaging with critical reviews online. Our online reputation relies on us engaging with every aspect of it, having our information correct, having someone responsive, and not just responsive when we need to fix something, but responsive and thankful to the people who had a great experience with us. I break positive reviews into 2 categories. Something to add, and the reason I say that is because the nothing to add is really only applicable if you don't have the time. Okay, that's really the only reason that we use a direct message or the auto thank button is if we don't have time to write 2 to 3 customized sentences. It doesn't need to be long, but replying publicly to positive reviews is very valuable, and reiterating something that your customer mentioned or said is great because it helps you appear in searches for those keywords as well. I'll say that one more time because that was a little bit hard to follow. When you're responding to positive reviews on Yelp or on any site, it's great to be concise, thank them for sharing their experience, and then reiterate something they mentioned. So when you're writing your public response, you can think of including a keyword or 2 about who you are or what you do, because all of that content on your page helps you appear in search results. Your response can help emphasize who you are and what you do. You'll get these slides. So these are just great references for you to come back to of ways to respond in short, concise, yet personalized ways to your positive reviews. Another reminder to amplify that positivity. I think this is a real lost opportunity for many businesses. They get the strategy in place to respond and be engaged, but then they don't capitalize on all the great 5-star reviews. So have a place on your website where those directly pull. That's easy to set up through Yelp, or share it on social like we had talked about. Now, let's get into what you are most concerned about, responding to the critical. And I'm going to start by saying that 99% of the time, I recommend a public response. Okay. A public response to a critical review is not used to win that reviewer over. It's not to get into a back and forth dialogue with the reviewer either. It is to reflect who you are as a business and your customer service practices. Okay. So let's break it up. Let's start with legitimate. Whenever I talk about legitimate reviews these days, I keep harping on my dentist. I feel bad. I don't use the name, but I've loved my dentist. I've gone to them for about 5 or so years since I moved back to the Midwest. And the past 2 appointments I've had, which was over the series of a couple of months, I've been on my way, which is kind of a long drive to get there, and they've canceled my appointment when I'm on my way. Now, it's not their fault that I drive far to go see them. It's a nature of when I was going to work in the city a couple days a week, and I would go to appointments based around that. And now I don't go into the office. So that's not their fault. But canceling on me within 30 to 60 minutes of my appointment, I think would be frustrating for anyone, no matter where they lived. I can't write Yelp reviews, but this is an example of a time when a hygienist was sick. It's not their fault, right? Things happen, but that's a legitimate negative experience that I had 2 times trying to come to an appointment. So if that happens to you, if you get a critical review for a legitimate thing that went wrong, the best thing you can do is respond publicly. Make it short and sweet. Thank the reviewer for taking the time to leave their feedback. Address one of the things that they brought up, and then take that conversation offline. So either provide them a way to get in touch with you or say that you sent a direct message. Whatever the case may be, you want to acknowledge, identify, and then take conversation offline. Because there is a chance to make this situation right. And we do see reviewers update their reviews all the time. So you want to make it right, but that's not the use of the public comment. Okay, let's move to the second category, inaccuracies. And this happens all the time, right? A reviewer is either exaggerating, elaborating, making things up, whatever the case may be. The only time you want to address inaccuracies in your response is if it impacts future consumers, okay? So when you're writing these public responses, you're being strategic, right? It's frustrating that you have to respond to a critical review, but you're going to do it with some professionalism and you're going to do it with strategy in mind. So the only reason to get into the details of inaccuracies is if it impacts future consumers who are looking at your page. Okay. And I also love to point out at this time that consumers are smart. So you've probably looked at reviews, whether they were on Yelp or other sites, and read a critical review and thought, that person is a little bit out there, or, ooh, that person's upset about something that wouldn't have upset me. So remember that when you're responding to critical, and just use it as an opportunity to show great customer service and that you care. Now, on Yelp in particular, we know that businesses that respond to reviews not only on average have a higher star rating, but they also have a higher quantity of reviews. And the psychology behind that makes a lot of sense, right? If I'm looking for businesses and I find your business and I see that you engage with your online reputation, I'm far more likely to share my experience. And I'm far more likely to come directly to the business when I have a concern, because I know that they want to address consumer concerns. So keep that in mind. The final category here is rants or raves. And again, this kind of goes in line with what I was just mentioning about certain consumers already identifying themselves as an unreliable reviewer. But if you, for example, feel that way about a critical review on your page, I always recommend on Yelp clicking on the name of the reviewer. You can see their account and a full breakdown of every Yelp review they've ever written. If that person skews negative, is always writing 1 and 2 stars, other consumers are going to be able to identify and see that. So maybe that person isn't someone that you use a public comment with, because of the risk of that turning into more than it's honestly worth. So maybe you send a direct message, or maybe you let that one go. And I think a lot of business owners take different approaches here, but the most important thing is, if you're emotional about it, bring someone else in on the cause, whether it's a team member, whether it's a spouse, a partner, someone you trust in business. You can't do it by yourself if your emotions are taking over the strategy. And that's where this slide comes in as a reminder. You know, a week, a month, a year from now, you might be responding to a review and be really frustrated. And I want you to remember This advice from one of my favorite business owners who taught me all his ways about reviews. He always says, Emily, I take a minute. Sometimes I take 24 hours. But what I don't do is respond when I'm mad. I always take the high road, even if internally I'm saying it with sarcasm and frustration. The verbiage and the words are the high road because I'm the business owner and I'm the professional, and I need to display that I treat my customers with the utmost respect. And then lastly, he always says, take comfort in knowing you can't please 100% of the customers you have 100% of the time. I was doing an interview actually right before this webinar today for the podcast, and it's a vet animal hospital that I was interviewing. And they said they deal with about 1 to 10 unable to please reviewing customers in a month. That's a lot, but they're also dealing with about 200 new potential clients in a given month. So keep in mind that if you're dealing with volume, you understand you're dealing with the breadth of people, right? And if you're doing enough business, sometimes critical reviews are going to follow just by nature of the numbers. So remember that to other consumers, that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes that shows trustworthiness, but the best thing you can do is engage and reply. So it's not a one-way street, and it's not just about that consumer's experience. It's also about how you as the business handle consumer concerns. This is another great slide for you to reference when you're kind of going back and thinking of how to craft your responses. What I love about this is they say they're sorry. They say it's not up to their usual standards. They give a method of contact, and that's it. They're not going to get into all the gritty details of what this reviewer shared. They're just saying, this isn't up to par for what we do. We'd like to make it right. Let's talk. And sometimes that's all that you need to do. Now, this example, I always need to show because in my 7 years at Yelp, I normally would never give a gold star to this long of a response. I'm normally one of the belief that you want to keep it short, top of mind, and take it offline. But in this case, this was a strategic and valuable response, and let me explain why. On the left, we have reviewer Ashley, who's very frustrated about all of the COVID measures being put in place by this business, the Candle Pour. They're an experienced in-person based business, and they had to make a lot of operational and experiential changes to keep their staff and their customers safe in the pandemic. This particular reviewer went line by line and addressed all the things they don't like about all of the decisions that Candle Pour had thought long and hard and critically decided to make. So they took the time to craft this very detailed response that went line by line and addressed why they have these things in place. Because of the pandemic, this was worth their time, right? Elaborating on this and reinforcing for customers who are looking or prioritizing options based on safety, that they are doing what they can and what they think is right for protection, but also to turn away future Ashleys who don't want this experience. And I think that's where this lengthy response can also translate to other things. I'll give you a restaurant example because I think it's super easy for you to apply to your own industry, no matter what service provider you are. I used to deal with a tapas restaurant, so small plates in the Bay Area. And essentially, they had this situation where a vast majority of customers understood the concept, farm to table. They're sourcing local ingredients, which often comes at a higher cost, which means their menu items are a little bit higher priced as well. They do, of course, get the occasional customer who writes a review because they're upset about the high prices. And the business owner takes the opportunity to explain their farm to table concept in those responses. When there's something that a reviewer is being critical of that is core to who you are as a business or the service you provide or the experience you create, that's when I think it is worth the time to write a lengthy response and reaffirm who you are so you can connect with all the people who are aligned there, and also Proactively turn away the people who aren't aligned. This is just a really great example of updated reviews. And I know a lot of my business owners who I've had on the show talk about the fact that updated reviews are one of the best rewards when they engage and get in touch, but often it doesn't always and mostly doesn't happen completely on the platform at all. So whether that's Yelp or another site, this is really about the connection with the consumer, making things right and learning from that experience, separated from your online reputation. So one of the strategies that has led to some of the biggest downfalls, particularly in service industries that I've seen, is when businesses become obsessed with getting the consumer to remove or update their review. That's not truly why you're making things right, right? You're making it right because you want the consumer experience to be good. And so when you become obsessed with the star rating and the fact that the review either is or isn't listed, you lose that connection between the consumer that you actually have to turn things around. And that's one of my favorite long frame takeaways is consumers who are upset and upset enough to share that experience online are normally the ones who become the most fanatical when you turn the situation around and when you do solve their concern. I had mentioned this earlier, but I would be remiss if I didn't go into more detail. On Yelp, we have a very, very strict policy against asking for or soliciting reviews. And the reason for that is because we believe asking for reviews creates innate bias, right? So what you don't want to do is send out mass newsletters or follow-up emails that specifically ask or tell your customers to write Yelp reviews. What you can do is tell people that you pay attention to your online reputation. Have links to all of your online platforms, whether that's on your website or in your email signature or on your receipts and follow-up communications. What you don't want to do is be directly pointing people or asking for Yelp reviews. And I know a lot of businesses want to get their numbers up or they want to get their quantity up. And on Yelp, that automated algorithm is going to be working against you if you're soliciting or asking for reviews. So make sure you're not doing that. Some other sites not only allow you to ask, but they give you the tools and resources to do that. Feel free to do that on those sites. I just need you to know that specifically on Yelp, it is against our terms of service and content guidelines, and the algorithm will actively work to not recommend those reviews. These are some great examples of ways that you can let your customers know you pay attention to online reviews and would love to hear from them. Maybe you have all of them listed, like I said, at the top of a web page or on signage in your business. I know QR codes are super big now. You want to be careful about asking for customers to write reviews right there with you as well. So just keep that in mind, make it more of a subtle thing. And that's why we come back to sharing and amplifying the positive reviews you do have. Allow those to be the subtle notes and the cues to your community to share their experience as well. This is just a nice little checklist to remind you everything when it comes to your online reputation begins with claiming your pages and making sure that they're accurate. You want to add all of the information to make sure that you're actually being found and understood for the services you provide. And then you want to have that strategy of staying in touch, turning on the notifications, getting updates when you have new reviews written on different platforms. This last little slide before we open it up for a final 15 minutes of live Q&A is just a reminder that Yelp's business blog has a ton of free resources you can access. During the pandemic, when we weren't able to be in person with our business owners, we created a ton of assets, both in written, audio, and video form that can help you with things specific to Yelp, like how to set up your free profile, as well as things that have nothing to do with Yelp. So we've got a ton of marketing expertise, funding information, lots of cool different things where we brought experts in and they wrote or spoke on interesting topics. I'll throw up that QR code for the podcast behind the review one more time. If you like podcasts or if you're looking to hear firsthand from business owners in a variety of industries, how they engage with reviews and manage them, I really highly recommend it. Entrepreneur has been a fantastic partner and allowed us to really capitalize on some great learnings and stories of business owners all across the country in a ton of different industries. As I turn it over for live Q&A, I will leave this slide up just for a moment so that you can jot down my email again, so that you can connect with us on social if you'd like to stay in touch with Yelp for Business, or if you need that link to claim or add your page to Yelp. I'll hand it back now to do a little bit of live Q&A, and then I'll bring the slides down and show my face in just a minute.
Thank you, Emily. Great presentation. I learned a lot. I hope everybody else did too. So we're about to jump into Q&A. So if you have any questions for Emily, please go ahead and start adding those in the Q&A box. But before we do that, we here at Leap are also offering a special promotion to those of you joining us today. Whether you are in the business of roofing, windows, siding, flooring, doors, kitchen and bath, or any other home improvement area, Leap can get rid of the redundancies and errors that slow down your sales process so you can get a leg up on the competition and scale and grow your business even more, and using Yelp doing it too. Leap is a point of sale software that takes multiple steps in your sales process and puts them in one digital resource. With Leap, you can pitch your company with updated marketing materials, pull aerial measurements into Leap to show how much material is needed, select products, present pricing packages, sign contracts, offer financing, and process payments, all with the homeowner in one single appointment. So no more spending hours in spreadsheet hell, no more errors and redundancies, and no more losing time or missing appointments because you're doing paperwork. So I do see some Q&A coming in.
I can grab this first one if that's all right.
I'll read it for you.
Okay,
Says,
cool.
we have been in business for over 10 years. We have never created a Yelp profile and strictly used Google reviews in-house. Would creating a Yelp page at this time be beneficial? And also, can people leave reviews for a business if said business has not created a Yelp page?
It's a really good question. So we'll start at the end and kind of work our way back. So Yelp is an online local business directory, which means consumers can add businesses to Yelp as well. So I always say, before you just go and add, make sure you do a search and make sure you don't already have a Yelp page. You could also have a page that was created and it doesn't have reviews on it. It could just have your general business information, because we do pull from a lot of different listings that have businesses located in different areas. The one thing I would say as well is creating that profile is just a free way to have your business information accessible and out there where people are searching. And if you're unsure if Yelp is really in your industry, two things to know: home services are our second most reviewed category. But also, if you just do a Google search for whatever industry you're in your area, I promise you Yelp will be one of the top 5 natural search results. I don't think I've ever found a home service industry that's not true, but I challenge you to do it and have fun with it. I actually live in a smaller market. I live in Milwaukee, and I'm buying and remodeling a house right now. And I was kind of doing the same sort of thing to see how big we are compared to other major markets where I've lived as well. And even in smaller cities, Yelp is going to be one of those top natural results when you do a Google search. So having your free Yelp profile is just going to give you an opportunity to be found by those consumers. You also have to remember that tons of consumers begin all their searches on the Yelp app. We're actually in the top 25 apps used nationwide, and we're used more than Netflix. I'm trying to think of what one of the other ones is, but the Netflix one always shocks me because so many people use that so often. So I definitely think it would be beneficial. And again, Nearly 85% of what you can do on the profile is free. So adding or claiming is really a great way to just get all of that information out there and be able to be found where people might be looking.
Awesome, thank you so much. Another question people have is, will the slides be available after the recording? And yes, they will be. A recording of today's presentation will be emailed to all registrants along with a downloadable ebook. I also just put that ebook inside the chat feature. If you want to go ahead and click on that, you can take a look at that. Emily actually helped us put that together, I believe a little bit ago. And all her tips you learned today, I'm sure, are in there. Okay. And then one last question. If anybody else doesn't have any questions, or if you don't have any more comments, Emily.
Yeah, I can drop my email in the chat for anyone else who needs that. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or email me if you didn't feel comfortable asking your question today. I'm more than happy to help. The other thing I would say, and I'll put the number in here, 877-767-9354. Yelp has a support line, and we have people available Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific. So those are pretty big windows if you have questions or concerns. And the other thing I always tell people in your industry is, if you want to hop on a call and better understand the paid elements, just come to that call with some information that you are comfortable presenting. And this is true when you talk to any company, not just Yelp, but what are you doing right now for advertising? What's your budget? And what are you looking to achieve when it comes to new clients in advertising? And I think those key bits of information can help you have a really constructive call, whether it's with Yelp or another company that might have options for you.
Awesome, thank you so much. I also wanted to invite everybody to join us for our next webinar next Tuesday. It's called Documentation, Digitization, and the Importance of Process, where Mike Knott from Company Camp and Tom Bash from Leap will talk to a mutual customer, Ninja Coding, about how they streamline their processes and workflow to make their lives easier and their business run more smoothly. This webinar, like I said, will be held next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Today, if you are interested in learning more about Leap, we will send you a gift card for lunch if you have a conversation with us. And then if you are a good fit, we will also give you $500 off to use towards your Leap subscription. I'm going to launch a poll right now, so you can here you go. It says, tired of spending countless hours in spreadsheet houses. No, if you're interested in learning more about Leap and what we do. Again,
I just dropped the link for the slides in here as well, and then I'll send them to the Leap team so you guys can share them out after.
Awesome, thank you so much. Cool. So thank you again, Emily, for being here. Like I said before, we will email out today's webinar recording to you. So please feel free to share with your colleagues, forward it on to somebody at your team who is going to be in charge of monitoring reviews, using them for marketing, etc. You can also check out our resources tab on our website for more learning tools like webinars, ebooks, blogs. And if you said you wanted to learn more about Leap, our team will reach out to you soon. Everybody have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you next week.